Like that old Stain song, it's been a while since we've seen the Bulldozer Tanner Boser in the UFC's octagon, and likewise for Colmeia, Rodrigo Nascimento, the same thing can be said, and under weird circumstances, because for the Bulldozer Boser out of Alberta, he gets a finish win over Vince St. Preux, former title challenger, and then he takes a year and 2 months away. And he's had fights booked in the interim, and it's been unfortunate that those ones have fallen out. He had one against Sergey Pavlovich. You have to think with a win there, you're in the rankings. Like, Pavlovich beat Derek Lewis not that long ago, and kind of cut from the same cloth. He was supposed to take on Alexander Romanov, and that fight fell out on short notice. In steps Chase Sherman, and then loses. Romanov was like a minus 1,200 favorite in that matchup. For Boser, it's been an interesting run in the UFC because it felt like he was signed very late in his career. He had a lot of experience. ACA, Unified, which is the promotion out west in Canada, and very, very much was known on him. There was a lot of tape to see, and he hasn't really changed a whole lot from beginning of his career to what we have in the UFC. He's going to employ a volume striking game. He has a lot of power in his right hand when he decides to mix his power shots with his volume shots. He throws a lot of leg kicks. He's an active heavyweight when he's in that cage. It's just, he hasn't been active in the last year. And for Colmeia, I gotta say this, nothing has to suck more than when the athletic commission says, you know what? We're taking that win away from you that you had over Alambado by finish. We're going to call it a no contest because he tested positive for ritalinic acid, but then he went back, he challenged it, he won the challenge, but the win that he had is still considered a no contest, and that's pretty weak, I have to say. It should be a win on his record.
I agree 100%. I think USADA is somewhat crooked.
You hate to see it, Matt. You hate to see it, and that's kind of my jumping off point. It was USADA, not the Athletic Commission, but yeah, USADA, UFC, they got to work together to get that one to be a win, because for Nacimento, that was a performance of the night bonus winner. He was getting beat pillar to post in the first round by Alain Badeau, and if you don't believe me, go back and watch the fight. Badeau actually looked really good with his kickboxing in the first round. Nacimento comes back, drops him, finishes him. Nacimento, not really a power puncher. He's a submission artist. That's his game. He very much does get it done on the mat.
This is the weird thing about Tanner Boser. The heavyweight division is filled with specialists. Like, everybody specializes in one thing, and they're just sort of that archetype, if you will, of a heavyweight. Tanner Boser's a really good version of a well-rounded heavyweight. It's just well-rounded heavyweights rarely make it up to the top of the division, and that is the weird thing about Boser. Normally you have people like, think of Stipe, for instance, a great boxer with incredible hand speed, great power. Francis Ngannou might be the most heavy-handed puncher we've ever seen in mixed martial arts. Alistair Overeem, Fabricio Verdum, like, the names go on and on. For the most part in the heavyweight division, if you specialize in one thing, it can take you very far. But that's been interesting to see out of Tanner Boser's, at least rise up until this point. He is well-rounded, but that's the weird thing about his game. Like, even go back to the Arlovsky fight, and I know Arlovsky's way past it, and that was a really close fight. Like, I don't care who you had it for. Tanner Boser, you would think, though, would be able to at least just land more consistently on a guy like Andrei Arlovsky, who, yes, has good footwork at this stage of his career, but still, Boser being that well-rounded volume striker is one of the few heavyweights whose style is almost tailored towards beating a guy like that, and honestly kind of looking good against someone like that. Now, Boser was able to look really good his last time out against Ovin St. Preux, but even against St. Preux, there's a bit of a red flag you can throw up. Well, that's a former 205er who hasn't looked great in the heavyweight division. It's just for Boser, it is really unfortunate that we weren't able to see him in those two matchups that you had talked about. I want to talk about the Pavlovich fight and the Romanov fights as well, because those were going to be real tests for Tanner Boser. Those were going to tell us, okay, can you beat the other hyped up prospect who is a specialist, like I had mentioned in Romanov? Same thing with Pavlovich, we know how great of a power puncher he is now. Could he go out there and beat those specialists who we actually think very highly of? It's just been really unfortunate for Boser that he hasn't had those two opportunities, because like you said, if he beats Pavlovich, it's like what I said about Song Yadong. If he beats Corey Sandhagen, you shave 2 years off his career and it fast tracks him up. If Boser was able to fight Pavlovich, I'm not saying he was going to win that fight. That's a really tough fight for him if we are being honest, but still, if you are able to win that, well, then you're a ranked 12th to 1 heavyweight. You're going to get big opportunities. You're probably going to fight a big-name fighter on his way out. Like, it just really has been unfortunate for Boser these past couple of years.
And for Nacimento, I went back and watched the video that we had done when he was going to fight Chris Daukaus, and Matt's hot take in that video was, I don't see how Rodrigo Nascimento loses this fight.
The fact that all of the grappling kind of goes to Nacimento and the striking sort of 50-50, it gives away my prediction right now, but I don't know how Rodrigo Nascimento loses this fight.
I didn't either. We both had Nacimento in that fight, because for Nacimento, he could strike to get you down, and his jiu-jitsu was lights out. I mean, he submitted Dante Mays in his debut. That was impressive. He got a quick win on Dana White's Contender Series to then get him into the UFC. He does, of course, end up losing to Chris Dawkins, gets dropped, bang, bang, a couple of times, and it's over. And then he fights against Alain Baudot, and it's like, well, Alain hasn't won a fight in so many years, and he's not very good. And Baudot looked really good with the strike in the first round, and then Nacimento looked really good in the second round as Baudot had kind of fallen off in the second round, and Nacimento looked good. So for Nacimento, he's been a long-time American top team guy. You see who he's training with to get ready for this one, and it's Said Salma, who's a heavyweight with Bellator that I've mentioned quite a bit. The other thing for Boser to kind of fill in the gaps, you talked about his loss to Arlovsky. First time I saw it, I thought Boser won the fight. A lot of people thought Boser won the fight. He landed more strikes. Then when I watched it over again, those kind of longer shots from Arlovsky got a big reaction out of Boser, and maybe he did win that fight. So it's neither here nor there. But then you look at his next fight. For Boser, he takes on Ilir Latifi, loses by split decision. Did a good job in withstanding.
Kind of wrestled a lot.
Had a hard time wrestling. So we're going to see if Nacimento can land those power shots, can kind of implement his grappling and win out in a fight like that. Because for Nacimento, when he wins, he finishes the fight. And for Boser, can he bring Nacimento into the deep waters? Can he land some of those power shots like we saw against Felipe Lins or some of the other fights that we've seen? Or can he employ a volume striking game, keep Nacimento off him? That's what we're going to find out. When we look at the odds, Boser opened a minus 220 favorite, minus 185 right now. Nacimento opened at a plus 185, plus 155 or thereabouts. We have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt. Nacimiento's been out for a while. His stat line says a loss and a no contest. The fans like Tanner Boser. I'm going to say for Tanner Boser, it's going to be over under 75%.
I think it'll be under, but it'll be the favorite.
And it's going to be over here. 866 total votes, 83% Boser, 23% by decision, 71% by knockout.
Can I throw a red flag up just by all the people who picked him by knockout? Up until his recent streak, Tanner Boser was not known as some big knockout artist by any means.
For the 17% that have Nacimento, not surprised, 25% say by decision, 24%, 31% by submission, 32% by knockout. I would think Nacimento wins, he gets a finish. For Tanner Boser, decision, maybe by knockout, just because of how much Nacimento struggled in that first round treading water against Baudot.
I'm not trying to discredit anybody who picks Boser by knockout. I just feel like there's been a lot of people who think, oh, well, he's got some knockouts lately. If you go back and watch a lot of Tanner Boser, he's not traditionally a knockout artist by any means. He is very much more volume over knockout power. The thing is, if you have poor striking defense, those volume numbers add up, which then make them power shots. He's a 250-pound guy. If they land, they're going to hurt you. So
240 is last time.
240, exactly. My point is he's very big, and if a big person hits you 50 plus times, they're going to have effect. And that's the thing about Boser. I like him because he's not a knockout artist. I know that's a weird thing to say, but that's what makes him unique in this division, and I do think he'll be able to use his volume numbers a lot in this fight. That's why I do like Tanner Boser in this matchup, but it will be interesting to see him in there against another borderline ranked guy, because you're right, struggled a lot with the wrestling of Ilir Latifi, and the weird thing about the heavyweight division is there's not a lot of wrestlers at the bottom of the top 15, then you run into a bunch of them at the top 15. So for Boser, it would be nice to see him in there with another grapple heavy fighter before he gets like a Curtis Blades, of course, the most grapple heavy fighter. Just really interesting to see where either one of these fighters go after.
Would you be surprised if Nacimento won this fight, though?
No, I would not. I really do think that the pace of Nacimento, it's not that it falls off a cliff, it's not that it gets better. He is a steady fighter himself, and I could see some of his own power shots getting to Tanner Boser. Maybe as the fight does continue, if Boser's not able to land with a lot of accuracy, I just think it's going to take a while for Nacimento to really kick into his second and third gear, and I think before that happens, that's when Boser's going to be able to get good work done.
We'll see if we get the Nacimento that had a slick fade and some facial hair rather than the guy that we had our last time out who had a shaved head and a goatee. Looks like he aged 15 years between those. But both of us going with Canada's Tanner Boser. I like the steadiness out of him, and I'll go with steadiness in this one over the finishability of Nacimento, which is nothing we ever say on this channel. So both of us with Canada's Tanner Boser to get the win. It seems weird that we're picking Canadians on this card, Matt, but that's the way that we're going with it. We have some big-time fights left on this card, including Chidi and Joe Kawani and Gregory Rodriguez. And in the main event, Sung Yadong taking on Corey Sandhagen. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.